Listen to me very carefully. There comes a moment in every life when what used to work no longer works. The grind you relied on feels heavy. The motivation that once burned inside you feels distant. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've arrived at a crossroads, and that crossroads is calling for a reset, not quitting. A reset is courage. It's the decision to pause, look at your life honestly, and say, I refuse to keep running in the wrong direction just because I've been running for a long time. Too many people stay loyal to habits, routines, and mindsets that's silently killing their future. Reset means letting go of what drains you so you can make room for what drives. But reset alone is not enough. After the reset comes refocus. Because once the noise dies down, once the distractions are stripped away, you are forced to face the truth. What actually matters? Refocus is about discipline. It's about choosing purpose over popularity, progress over comfort, and long-term vision over short-term pleasure. Refocus means waking up every day knowing exactly why you're doing what you're doing, even when nobody is clapping for you. When you refocus, excuses lose their power. You stop blaming people, circumstances, and the past. You understand that your future doesn't need permission from your past. You stop asking, why me? And start declaring, oh, watch me. That's when your energy shifts. That's when your effort becomes intentional. That's when your grind gains meaning. And then when reset clears the path and refocus sharpens the vision, it's time to raise. Raise your standard. Raise your work ethic. Raise your expectations of yourself. Stop negotiating with your potential. Stop playing small just to fit in places you've already outgrown. Raise means elevation. It means growth that can't be hidden. It means becoming so consistent, so committed, that success has no choice but to recognize you. Raising your life doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens in small daily decisions. Choosing to show up when you don't feel like it. Choosing discipline when motivation fades. Choosing belief when doubt is loud. Every time you choose better, you rise higher. Reset, refocus, raise. Not tomorrow, not next year, right now. Most people think transformation starts with setting new goals. They wake up one day, feel frustrated, and say they need a new plan, a new target, a new destination. They write goals in a notebook, post quotes on the wall, and make promises to themselves that this time will be different. But weeks later, nothing has changed. Same habits, same excuses, same results. And they start wondering what's wrong with them. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. They tried to reset their goals without resetting their identity. And when your identity stays the same, your outcomes will always pull you back to familiar ground. Your identity is the story you tell yourself about who you are. It's the voice in your head that says what you deserve, what you're capable of, and what's realistic for you. If that voice still sounds small, scared, or limited, it doesn't matter how big your goals are. You will subconsciously sabotage anything that doesn't match how you see yourself. You might say you want success, but if deep down you still identify as someone who will never finishes, isn't disciplined, or comes from nothing, your behavior will always defend that identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your self-image. That's why a real reset doesn't start with the calendar or the to-do list. It starts with an internal audit. Who have you been telling yourself you are? The tired one? The unlucky one? The one who almost makes it? The one who had potential but got distracted? Many people carry old labels that no longer fit, but they keep wearing them because they're familiar. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. Resetting your identity means having the courage to question those labels and ask whether they are facts or just habits of thought. A lot of what you believe about yourself was handed to you. Someone said you were slow. Someone said you were average. Someone said people like you don't succeed. Over time, those words didn't just hurt. They settled in. They became an identity. And once something becomes identity, you stop arguing with it. You defend it. You live up to it. Resetting your identity means deciding that other people's opinions don't get permanent residence in your mind. It means understanding that just because something's shaped you doesn't mean it has to define you. When you reset your identity, you stop asking, well, what do I want? And start asking, who must I become? Who must I become? That question changes everything. Because goals are temporary, but identity is permanent. This reset is uncomfortable because it forces honesty. You have to admit where you've been lying to yourself. You have to confront the gap between who you say you want to be and how you actually live. And that gap is painful. But pain with purpose is better than comfort with regret. You can't raise a life you won't first examine. Resetting your identity also means letting go of emotional attachments to your old self. Some people secretly love being the underdog, the victim, the one who's still trying. That identity brings sympathy, brings excuses. It lowers expectations. It lowers expectation, but it also caps growth. When you reset, you step into responsibility. You stop blaming your environment and start owning your choices. You stop waiting for permission to evolve. Once identity shifts, behavior follows naturally. You don't force yourself to work harder. You work harder because it aligns with who you are now. You don't fight distractions every day. You avoid them because they don't fit your standards. This is why discipline feels lighter for some people. It's not because they're stronger. It's because their actions match their identity. Resetting identity also changes how you interpret failure. Instead of seeing mistakes as proof that you're not good enough, you see them as feedback. You stop personalizing setbacks and start learning from them. When your identity is grounded, failure doesn't threaten who you are. It refines you. You don't quit because quitting no longer matches your self-image. Many people try to fake confidence by repeating affirmations they don't believe. That doesn't work long term. A true reset is built through evidence. You rebuild identity by keeping small promises to yourself. You say you're the kind of person who shows up early, so you show up early. You say you're disciplined, so you do the work even when it's boring. Each action casts a vote for the person you're becoming. Over time, those votes add up, and identity changes from the inside out. Resetting your identity also affects the people you tolerate around you. When you see yourself differently, you stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. You stop explaining your ambition to people committed to mediocrity. You stop seeking approval from those who don't share values. Growth often requires social courage. You may outgrow rooms, conversations, and relationships. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. A reset doesn't erase your past. It reframes it. Your struggles stop being sources of shame and become sources of strength. You realize that what you survived didn't weaken you, it trained you. You stop introducing yourself by your wounds and start introducing yourself by your direction. Where you're going becomes more important than where you've been. This process takes patience. Identity doesn't shift overnight because it's been built over years. There will be days when the old voice comes back, reminding you of who you used to be. The difference now is that you don't obey it. You acknowledge it. Then choose differently. Consistency beats intensity every time. You don't need a dramatic transformation. You need a committed one. When identity resets, goals stop feeling heavy. They stop feeling like pressure and stop feeling like expressions of who you are. You don't chase success to prove your worth. You pursue growth because it's your nature. You stop comparing your journey to others because you're clear on your own path. Comparison loses power when identity is secure. The world will test your reset. People will question you. Circumstances will challenge you. Old habits will try to resurface. That's not a sign you're failing. That's a sign you're changing. Resistance always shows up when growth is real. The key is to respond from your new identity, not your old emotions. Resetting your identity is the foundation of Refocus and Raise. Without it, Refocus becomes temporary discipline, and Raise becomes short-lived success. With it, everything compounds. Your time is used better. Your energy is directed. Your standards elevate. You don't just do better, you become better. At some point, you have to stop introducing yourself as who you were and start living as who you decided to be. You don't wait until you feel ready. You move and readiness catches up. You act your way into a new identity instead of waiting to feel it. That's how real change happens. When you reset your identity, you realize you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. You bring wisdom into your next chapter. You bring clarity. You bring hunger with direction. You stop chasing motivation and start building momentum. This reset is not about pretending to be perfect. It's about committing to growth. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't quit on themselves. The kind of person who finishes what they start. The kind of person who does the work when it's quiet, lonely, and uncomfortable. Once identity changes, goals stop being wishes and stop being destinations. You move differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. You decide differently. And eventually you live differently. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. That is why the first reset is never external. It's internal. Before you reset your schedule, reset your standards. Before you reset your goals, reset your self-image. Because when you know who you are, what you do becomes clear. You don't need a new year. You don't need permission. You need a decision. A decision to no longer live beneath your potential. A decision to stop rehearsing excuses and start rehearsing discipline. A decision to reset who you believe you are. When that happens, refocus becomes natural. Raising your life becomes inevitable. And the version of you that once struggled to believe will one day look back and realize the moment everything changed wasn't when we set a new goal, but when you chose a new identity. Hard work is praised everywhere. People celebrate the grind, the hustle, the long hours, the late nights. They applaud effort and glorify exhaustion, but effort alone is not the difference between people who stay stuck and people who break through. There are countless individuals working extremely hard every single day and still going nowhere. They are tired, stressed, and frustrated, yet their lives look the same year after year. The missing ingredient is not effort, it's focus. Because when effort is not directed, it becomes noise. Refocus is what turns effort into impact. Refocus begins with understanding that not all work is equal. You can be busy and still be ineffective. You can move nonstop and still make no progress. Activity feels productive, but it often hides avoidance. It allows you to feel like you're doing something without actually doing what matters most. Refocus demands honesty about where your energy is going. It forces you to separate what looks important from what actually moves the needle. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because their attention is scattered. They try to chase too many outcomes at once. They say yes to everything, respond to every distraction, and react to every emotion. Their effort is divided if it produces diluted results. Refocus is the discipline of choosing fewer things and doing them with greater intensity. When you refocus, you stop asking, am I busy? And start asking, am I fit? That shift changes how you plan your day, how you spend your time, and how you measure success. You begin to realize that 1 hour of deep intentional work can outperform 10 hours of distracted effort. Impact doesn't come from how long you work. It comes from how aligned your work is with your purpose. Refocus also requires clarity about your priorities. You cannot focus on everything, so you must decide what deserves your best energy. This decision is uncomfortable because it means some things will be neglected. Some opportunities will be missed. Some people will be disappointed. But growth always demands trade-offs. You can have comfort of progress, but rarely both at the same time. A lack of focus often disguises itself as potential. People say they are multi-talented or exploring options, but years pass and nothing solid is built. Refocus means committing. It means planting your feet instead of constantly searching for the next easier path. It means staying long enough in one direction to let effort compound. When effort is focused, it gains momentum. Small actions begin to stack. Progress becomes visible. Confidence grows not because you're hyping yourself up, but because you're seeing results. That confidence then fuels even better focus. This is how momentum is created, not through massive breakthroughs, but through sustained, intentional effort in the right direction. Refocus also changes how you handle distractions. Instead of fighting them with willpower alone, you redesign your environment. You remove temptations. You structure your day. You protect your peak hours. You understand that discipline is not just about saying no in the moment. It's about making the wrong choices harder to access in the first place. Many people wait to feel motivated before they focus. But focus is not a feeling, it's a decision. Some days you will feel inspired. Most days you won't. Refocus teaches you to work anyway. It trains you to act based on values, not emotion. Over time, this builds a level of self-respect that motivation alone can never provide. Focused effort also brings emotional clarity. When you know what you're working toward, anxiety decreases. Confusion fades. You stop second-guessing every move. Even when progress is slow, you trust the process because you understand the direction. Refocus doesn't eliminate struggle. It gives struggle meaning. Another powerful aspect of refocus is learning what to ignore. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every opportunity deserves your time. Not every criticism deserves a response. Focused people are selective listeners. They gather feedback from sources that align with their goals and filter out noise that doesn't serve their growth. Refocus turns effort into impact by aligning daily actions with long-term vision. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. Your calendar begins to reflect your priorities instead of your impulses. You don't just hope your life improves, you design it to improve. This process also reveals weaknesses. When you remove distractions, there's nowhere to hide. You see clearly where you lack skill, discipline, or patience. This can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Refocus doesn't just magnify strengths, it exposes gaps that need development. That awareness is a gift, not a flaw. Focused effort creates leverage. Instead of spreading yourself thin, you invest deeply. You study more intentionally. You practice more deliberately. You recover more strategically. Over time, this depth separates you from those who rely on raw effort alone. You're not just working harder, you're working smarter and more purposefully. Refocus also strengthens resilience. When setbacks happen, and they will, you don't collapse because your effort is anchored to a clear why. You're not just grinding the grind. You're building towards something meaningful. That meaning sustains you when results are delayed. Many people quit not because they're incapable, but because their effort feels pointless. Refocus solves that. It reconnects effort to purpose. It reminds you why the work matters. Even on difficult days, you know you're investing in something that aligns with who you want to become. Over time, focused effort reshapes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who executes, someone who makes progress. This identity then reinforces focus, creating a powerful cycle. Effort feeds impact. Impact feeds belief. Belief feeds even greater effort. Refocus doesn't mean rigidity. It means intentional flexibility. You adjust strategies without abandoning direction. You learn from feedback without losing conviction. You stay committed to the vision while remaining adaptable in the approach. This balance is what keeps focused people moving forward while others burn out. When effort becomes impact, people notice. Not because you're loud, but because results speak. Opportunities open. Trust builds. Momentum attracts support. But by the time recognition arrives, your focus is already internal. You're no longer driven by validation. You're driven by alignment. Refocus is not a one-time event. It's a daily practice. Every morning, you decide what deserves your best energy. Every evening, you reflect on whether your actions matched your intention. Some days you'll fall short. That's part of the process. What matters is returning to focus instead of quitting. The world is designed to fragment your attention. Notifications, comparisons, endless content, all competing for your focus. Choosing refocus is an act of resistance. It's a declaration that your life is too important to be lived on autopilot. When effort is focused, it stops feeling chaotic. Even when you're busy, there's a sense of control. You're tired, but it's a meaningful tired. You're stretched, but not scattered. That's the difference between draining work and fulfilling work. Refocus turns ordinary actions into extraordinary outcomes over time. Reading consistently compounds into knowledge. Training deliberately compounds into mastery. Showing up daily compounds into true trust. These are quiet processes, but they produce loud results. Eventually, you realize that focus is not about intensity alone. It's about direction plus consistency. You don't need to do everything today. You need to do the right things repeatedly. That's how effort becomes impact. Refocus teaches you patience. Impact rarely shows up immediately. But when you trust focused effort, you stop chasing shortcuts. You stop hopping from one thing to the next. You give growth the time it required. In the end, refocus is about respect. Respect for your time, your energy, and your potential. It's choosing to invest those resources wisely instead of spending impulsively. It's understanding that your life will reflect whatever you consistently focus on. When you refocus, effort stops being wasted. Every step counts. Every action matters. Every day moves you closer. That's when work stops feeling like survival and starts feeling like progress. That's when effort finally becomes impact. Every result in your life is connected to a standard you've accepted, whether consciously or unconsciously. Standards are not what you say you want. They are what you tolerate. They are the quiet rules that govern your behavior when nobody is watching. You don't get what you hope for in life. You get what you accept. That's why raising your standards is not optional if you want to raise your results. And the truth many people avoid is this: if your results are low, it's not because life is unfair. It's because your standards are too low for the life you say you want. Most people don't intentionally choose low standards. They drift into them. They get tired. They get discouraged. They settle up for now, and that for now slowly turns into a permanent lifestyle. They stop demanding excellence from themselves and start negotiating with their potential. They say things like, "This is good enough," or "at least I tried," or "it could be worse." Those phrases sound harmless, but they quietly lower the bar. And once the bar is lower, life meets you right there. Raising your standards begins with self-awareness. You have to look at your habits, your relationships, your work ethic, and your mindset, and ask yourself hard questions. What do I allow that I shouldn't? What do I excuse that is costing me growth? Where have I become comfortable with mediocrity? This process is uncomfortable because it removes the ability to blame others. Standards are personal. Standards are personal. They are enforced or ignored by you. Low standards often disguise themselves as realism. People say they're just being realistic when they really mean they're afraid of disappointment. They lower expectations to protect themselves from failure. But protecting yourself from failure also protects you from success. High standards don't guarantee easy outcomes, but low standards guarantee limited ones. You cannot outperform the level you demand from yourself. Raising your standards doesn't mean becoming harsh or perfectionistic. It means becoming intentional. It means deciding that certain behaviors, excuses, and environments are no longer acceptable. It means drawing lines where you used to make exceptions. It means understanding that growth requires discomfort, and comfort is often the enemy of excellence. Your standards show up most clearly in your daily routines. How you start your day, how you manage your time, how you respond to setbacks, how you speak to yourself when things go wrong. If your standard is convenience, you'll choose what's easy. If your standard is growth, you'll choose what's necessary. Over time, those choices compound into dramatically different lives. One of the biggest reasons people resist raising their standards is fear of consistency. It's one thing to perform well occasionally. It's another thing to live at a higher level every day. Higher standards demand consistency, and consistency character. You can fake intensity for a short time, but you can't fake standards long term. They will reveal who you really are. Raising your standards also changes your relationship with effort. You stop doing the minimum required and start doing what the situation deserves. You stop asking, "Can I get away with this?" and start asking, "Is this aligned with who I want to become?" That shift alone separates average performers from high achievers. Many people want better outcomes without changing the behaviors that produce their current ones. They want higher income, but keep the same discipline. They want better health, but keep the same habits. They want stronger relationships, but keep the same communication patterns. Life doesn't work that way. New results require new standards. You can't demand a higher level from life if you're unwilling to demand a higher level from yourself. Raising your standards will make some people uncomfortable. When you elevate your expectations, you expose the complacency of others. Some will accuse you of changing. They're right. Growth is change, and not everyone benefits from the new version of you. This is where many people retreat. They lower their standards again to fit in, to avoid conflict, to keep peace. But peace at the cost of potential is too expensive. Higher standards also bring clarity. You waste less time debating decisions because your rules are clear. If it doesn't meet the standard, it's a no. If it aligns, it's a yes. This clarity reduces mental fatigue. You're no longer constantly negotiating with yourself. You've already decided who you are and what you accept. Raising your standards changes how you deal with failure. Instead of using mistakes as excuses to quit, you use them as feedback to improve. High standards don't eliminate failure. They redefine it. Failure becomes information, not identity. You don't lower the standard because you fell short. You raise your effort to meet it. Another powerful aspect of higher standards is delayed gratification. You become willing to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term reward. You stop chasing instant results and start building sustainable progress. This patience is a competitive advantage in a world addicted to immediacy. Standards also shape your environment. When you expect more from yourself, you naturally seek environments that support growth. You surround yourself with people who challenge you, not just comfort you. You consume information that stretches you, not just entertains you. You become intentional about what you allow into your mind because you understand that input shapes output. Many people confuse standards with motivation. Motivation is temporary. Standards are permanent. You don't need to feel motivated to live up to your standards. You do it because that's who you are. This is why high performers remain consistent even when motivation fades. Their behavior is anchored to identity, not emotion. Raising your standards also means raising your self-talk. You stop speaking to yourself in ways you would never speak to someone you respect. You replace destructive internal dialogue with disciplined, honest communication. Not empty positivity, but constructive truth. You hold yourself accountable without tearing yourself down. As standards rise, excuses lose their power. You still experience obstacles, but you no longer use them as reasons to quit. You adapt, you adjust, you find another way. High standards don't make life easier, they make you stronger. Over time, higher standards produce visible results. Not overnight, but inevitably. Your work improves. Your confidence grows, your opportunities expand. People begin to trust yourself to deliver. This trust becomes a currency that opens doors effort alone cannot. Raising your standards is also an act of self-respect. It's saying, I believe my life is worth the effort it takes to live well. It's refusing to waste potential out of fear or laziness. It's choosing excellence not for applause, but for alignment. There will be days when you fall short of your standards. That's human. The difference is that you don't redefine the standard to match the slip. You recommit. You course correct. You get back up faster. Progress is not about never falling. It's about refusing to stay down. Higher standards also create momentum. When you consistently show up at a higher level, it becomes normal. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. You raise the floor of your performance, not just the ceiling. This stability is what creates long-term success. You cannot raise your results without raising your standards because results are a reflection of repeated behavior. And repeated behavior is governed by standards. Change the standards and behavior follows. Change behavior and results follow. At some point, you must decide that your future deserves more than your comfort, that your goals deserve more than your excuses, that your potential deserves more than your fear. Raising your standards is that decision in action. Life will not challenge you to rise higher than the level you demand from yourself. If you want extraordinary outcomes, you must adopt extraordinary standards. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, not when it's convenient. When you raise your standards, you stop asking life to change and start changing yourself. And when that happens, results have no choice but to rise. Distractions rarely announce themselves as enemies. They don't arrive loudly, demanding your future in one dramatic moment. Instead, they come quietly. They come dressed as comfort, entertainment, busyness, obligation, or even opportunity. That's what makes them dangerous. Distractions don't usually destroy destiny in a single blow. They steal it piece by piece, minute by minute, day by day. By the time most people realize what's happening, years have passed, energy has faded, and potential has been quietly traded for convenience. Destiny is not stolen when you fail once. It's stolen when you consistently give your attention to things that don't matter while neglecting the few things that do. Most people don't lose their future because they made a terrible decision. They lose it because they made thousands of small, careless ones. Distraction is not about doing bad things. It's about doing unimportant things so often that important things never get done. One of the greatest lies people tell themselves is, I'll focus later. Later feels safe because it postpones responsibility. Later allows you to avoid the discomfort of discipline today. But later is where dreams go to fade. Focus delayed is destiny denied. You don't wake up one day suddenly focused. Focus is trained through daily resistance to distraction. Distractions thrive in unclarity. You don't know exactly what you're aiming for. Everything looks tempting. Every notification feels urgent. Every request feels necessary. Every opportunity feels like it might be the one. Without a clear sense of purpose, you become reactive instead of intentional. Your time is no longer yours. It's rented out to whoever demands it loudest. The modern world is engineered for distraction. Attention has become a commodity, and countless systems are designed to capture it, hold it, and monetize it. Endless scrolling, constant notifications, rapid content cycles, these aren't accidents. They are tools competing for your focus. If you don't guard your attention, someone else will gladly use it for their agenda. What makes distraction especially dangerous is that it often feels harmless. Watching one more video, checking one more message, saying yes to one more request. None of these seem destructive on their own. But destiny isn't lost in extremes. It's lost in pattern. A distracted hour becomes a distracted day. A distracted day becomes a distracted life. Distractions also create the illusion of progress. You feel busy. You feel occupied. But movement is not the same as advancement. You can be constantly doing and still be standing still. Distraction gives you motion without direction. It keeps you tired but unchained. Keeps you tired but unchained. Another silent danger of distraction is that it weakens your ability to think deeply. Focus is a muscle. When constantly interrupted, it loses strength. You become uncomfortable with silence. You struggle to sit with challenging problems. You avoid deep work because it requires sustained attention. Over time, this shallow mode of living limits creativity, problem solving, and growth. Distractions don't just steal time, they steal identity. The more distracted you are, the more disconnected you become from who you're trying to become. You stop acting from intention and start acting from impulse. You become a collection of reactions instead of a person with direction. This internal fragmentation creates anxiety, frustration, and a sense of being overwhelmed, even when nothing is truly wrong. Many people blame lack of motivation for their lack of progress, when the real issue is unmanaged distraction. Motivation doesn't stand a chance in an environment that constantly pulls your attention away. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer distractions. Clarity and consistency thrive in focused spaces. Distractions are especially dangerous because they don't always come from negative sources. Sometimes they come from good things, helping others, being available, exploring new ideas, saying yes to opportunities. But even good things become distractions when they pull you away from your primary purpose. Destiny requires sacrifice. And sometimes the sacrifice is saying no to things that aren't wrong, but aren't right for you. Distraction also feeds procrastination. When a task feels difficult or uncomfortable, distraction offers escape. It provides immediate relief from pressure. But that relief is temporary, and the cost is long-term. Every time you escape discomfort through distraction, you train yourself to avoid growth. Over time, this avoidance becomes a habit, and habits shape destiny. Focus, on the other hand, creates alignment. When you eliminate distractions, your actions begin to match your intention. You feel less scattered and more grounded, even when progress is slow. There's a sense of direction. Focus doesn't make the work easier, it makes it meaningful. Learning to manage distraction requires honesty. You must identify what consistently pulls you away from your priorities. Not what sounds impressive, but what's real. It might be your phone. It might be your phone. It might be certain relationships. It might be overcommitting. It might be fear disguised as busyness. You can't defeat what you won't name. Managing distraction is not about isolation. It's about boundaries. Boundaries protect focus. They define when you are available and when you are not. They allow you to give your best energy to what matters most instead of spreading it thin across everything. Without boundaries, distraction always wins. Distraction also affects emotional health. Constant stimulation keeps the nervous system in a state of alert. You're always reacting, rarely reflecting. This leads to burnout, even when you're not doing meaningful work. Focus brings calm because it simplifies decision-making. You're no longer pulled in 10 directions. You're committed to one. The most successful people are not immune to distraction. They are intentional about limiting it. They design their environments to support focus. They schedule deep work. They control inputs. They understand that willpower is unreliable, but systems are powerful. They don't rely on discipline alone. They remove temptation where possible. Distraction steals destiny by stealing presence. When you're distracted, you're never fully where you are. You're half working, half scrolling, half listening, half thinking about something else. This divided attention weakens performance and relationship. Focused presence, on the other hand, multiplies impact in every area of life. Over time, distraction erodes confidence. When you constantly start and stop, plan and abandon, your trust in yourself decreases. You stop believing you can follow through. Focus rebuilds that trust. Each completed task reinforces the belief that you can commit and execute. Distraction also distorts priorities. Urgent things replace important things. Noise replaces meaning. You respond to what's immediate instead of investing in what's significant. Destiny is built through long-term commitment, not short-term reaction. Choosing focus in a distracted world is an act of courage. It requires you to be different. It requires you to be misunderstood. It requires you to tolerate boredom, discomfort, and silence. But on the other side of that discomfort is clarity, growth, and progress. Focus doesn't mean eliminating enjoyment or rest. It means being intentional about when and how you engage with them. Rest supports destiny when it's purposeful. Distraction undermines destiny when it's uncontrolled. Every day you are voting for your future with your attention. What you focus on consistently becomes what you build. If you focus on trivial things, you build a trivial life. If you focus on meaningful work, you build something that lasts. Destiny is not dramatic. It's quiet. It's shaped in ordinary moments when nobody is watching. It's shaped when you choose to focus instead of scroll, commit instead of drift, and act instead of delay. Distractions will always exist. The question is whether they will control you or whether you will control them. Your future depends on that answer. Protecting your focus is not selfish, it's responsible. Because when you honor your destiny, you eventually have more to give. When you look back on your life, it won't be the big failures that hurt the most. It will be the potential left unexplored, the work left undone, the focus never fully given. Distractions are silent, but their consequences are loud. Guard your attention, respect your focus. Because destiny doesn't require perfection, it requires presence. And presence is impossible in a distracted life. Big change rarely announces itself with fireworks. It doesn't usually arrive in dramatic moments where everything shifts overnight. Most of the time, real transformation is quiet. It hides in routine. It lives in the small choices you make when no one is watching and no one is applauding. That's why small daily actions are so powerful. They don't look impressive in the moment, but over time, they create impact that outlives you. Immortality is not about being famous. It's about being consistent with what matters. Many people underestimate small actions because they're addicted to big moves. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the massive breakthrough, the one decision that will change everything. While they wait, days pass, weeks pass, years pass, and nothing changes. What they don't realize is that greatness is built the same way decay happens, slowly, quietly, and consistently. Small daily actions are always working, either for you or against you. Every habit you repeat is a vote for the future you are creating. Skipping one workout doesn't destroy your health, but consistently skipping does. Reading one page won't make you brilliant, but reading daily will change how you think. Saving a small amount of money won't make you wealthy overnight, but doing it consistently builds security and freedom. Immortal impact is not built through intensity alone. It's built through repetition. Small actions matter because they bypass resistance. Big goals often intimidate us. They trigger fear, doubt, and procrastination. Small actions feel manageable. They feel doable. That's why they're effective. You don't have to conquer the mountain today. You just have to take the next step. And when you take that step every day, the mountain eventually moves beneath your feet. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Every time you keep a small promise, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who follows through. That belief becomes identity, and identity drives behavior. People who create lasting impact are not necessarily more talented. They are more reliable with themselves. They show up even when it feels insignificant. Small daily actions compound in ways that are invisible at first. For a long time, it feels like nothing is happening. This is where most people quit. They mistake silence for failure, but compounding works quietly. Growth happens beneath the surface before it shows above it. Roots grow before fruit appears. If you abandon the process too early, you never see the result. Immortal impact is created when your actions outlive your motivation. Motivation is unpredictable. Some days you feel inspired. Most days you don't. Small daily actions don't rely on emotion. They rely on structure. When action becomes routine, it doesn't require a pep talk. It becomes part of who you are. Small actions also protect you from burnout. Massive efforts fueled by hype eventually collapse. Slow, steady progress fueled by discipline is sustainable. You don't need to exhaust yourself to make an impact. You need to be consistent enough to stay in the game long enough. The power of small actions lies in their accumulation. One brick doesn't look like a building. One note doesn't sound like a song. One practice session doesn't create mastery. But when bricks are laid daily, buildings rise. When notes are played repeatedly, music is created. When practice becomes habit, mastery follows. Legacy is built brick by brick, note by note, day by day. Many people want their lives to matter, but they look for meaning in big moments. Meaning is usually found in commitment and showing up when it's boring and doing the work when results are delayed. In choosing discipline over distraction again and again. These choices don't trend online, but they shape history. Small daily actions also influence others more than grand speeches ever will. People are inspired by what you do consistently, not what you say occasionally. Your habits become a message. Your discipline becomes a lesson. Your perseverance becomes proof. This is how impact spreads quietly from one life to another. Immortal impact doesn't mean everyone knows your name. It means something you did continues to matter after you're gone. It might be values you passed on. It might be work you built. It might be people you helped grow. These outcomes are the result of daily actions repeated over time, not single heroic acts. Small actions shape character. They teach patience. They teach humility. They teach commitment. When you do the right thing consistently, even when it's unnoticed, you develop integrity. And integrity is the foundation of lasting impact. Flashy success fades. Character endures. Daily actions also create momentum. Once something becomes routine, it takes less energy to maintain. What once felt difficult becomes normal. This frees mental space and energy to grow further. Momentum turns effort into ease over time. Many people sabotage themselves by doing nothing because they feel they can't do everything. They underestimate what a little progress can do over a long period. Small steps in the right direction are infinitely better than standing still waiting for perfection. Small daily actions require faith. Faith that what you're doing matters, even when you can't see evidence yet. Faith that consistency will pay off. Faith that the process is shaping you, even if the results haven't arrived. This faith is not blind optimism. It's trust built through experience. Immortal impact also requires patience with imperfection. You won't execute perfectly every day. Some days you'll do less. Some days you'll struggle. The power is not in perfection. It's in persistence. Missing once doesn't break the process. Quitting does. Small actions give structure to discipline. Instead of overwhelming yourself with unrealistic expectations, you focus on what you can do today. This reduces anxiety and increases follow-through. Progress becomes approachable instead of intimidating. Over time, small daily actions create alignment. Your values begin to match your behavior. Your intentions begin to show in your results. This alignment brings peace. You're no longer living with the tension of knowing what you should do but not doing it. You're living in integrity with your goals. Immortal impact is not built by waiting for the right mood. It's built by honoring commitments regardless of mood. Feelings change, habits remain. When habits are aligned with purpose, they carry you forward even on hard days. Small actions also teach resilience. When you practice showing up daily, you learn how to recover quickly from setbacks. You don't collapse when something goes wrong because the system is bigger than any single day. You return to the process. The most meaningful work often feels ordinary while you're doing it. Parenting, teaching, building, creating, serving. These things rarely feel heroic in the moment. But over time, they shape lives. They ripple outward. That ripple is immortal impact. Daily actions determine the story your life tells, not your intentions, not your dreams, your action. If someone studied your routine, they would know what matters to you. Legacy is written in schedules, not speeches. Small daily actions also sharpen focus. When you commit to doing a little every day, you eliminate the pressure of doing everything at once. You stay present. You stay engaged. You stop rushing and start building. Many people want fast results because they're afraid of time, but time is not the enemy. Wasted time is. When time is filled with intentional action, it becomes your greatest ally. Small daily actions turn time into a multiplier. Immortal impact often comes from unseen sacrifice. Choosing rest over distraction. Choosing preparation over comfort. Choosing consistency over convenience. These sacrifices don't get recognition, but they produce results that last. Small actions also create confidence. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind. The confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. That confidence doesn't need validation. It's grounded in evidence. Over years, small daily actions shape destiny. Careers are built. Families are shaped. Communities are influenced. Not through sudden breakthroughs, but through steady contribution. The danger is not doing small things poorly. The danger is ignoring them altogether. Because what you do daily eventually defines you. You don't drift into a meaningful life. You build it deliberately, one action at a time. Immortal impact is not about doing extraordinary things occasionally. It's about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, consistently over time. It's about showing up when it would be easier not to. Small daily actions honor potential. They respect the gift you've been given. They say, I won't waste this. They turn intention into execution. At the end of life, what remains will not be your bursts of motivation, but your patterns. Not what you say you would do, but what you repeatedly did. Those patterns tell the truth of who you were. So if you want your life to matter, don't wait for a big moment. Choose a small action today. Repeat it tomorrow. Protect it the next day. Let it compound. Let it shape you. Let it outlive you. That is how small daily actions create immortal impact. Quitting is rarely a single decision made in one dramatic moment. It usually begins much earlier in subtle ways that feel harmless at first. It starts when you stop showing up with the same intensity, when you begin to negotiate with discipline, when you tell yourself that skipping today won't matter. Quitting is not always walking away. Sometimes it's staying physically present while mentally checking out. In the moment you quit, even internally, your legacy stops growing. Legacy is not built in highlight moments. It's built in continuity. It's built in staying when leaving would be easier. It's built in pushing forward when progress is slow and recognition is absent. The reason quitting is so dangerous is not just because it ends a task. It interrupts a process. And legacy is always the result of process, never imposed. Most people think quitting only affects the present. They believe they can stop now and restart later without consequence. But quitting changes something deeper than momentum. It changes belief. Every time you quit, you teach yourself a lesson. That discomfort is a valid reason to stop. That lesson doesn't stay in one area of life. It spreads. It shows up in relationships, careers, health, and personal growth. Quit becomes a pattern long before it becomes a habit. When you quit, you don't just lose the outcome you were chasing, you lose the person you were becoming along the way. Growth happens in resistance. Character is formed when things are hard, not when they're easy. If you quit every time it gets uncomfortable, you rob yourself of the very experiences that shape strength, patience, and resilience. Legacy is who you become while pursuing the goal, not just whether you achieve it. Quitting often feels justified. People wrap it in logic. They say they're being realistic, or protecting their peace, or choosing something better. Sometimes those reasons are valid, but most of the time, quitting is disguised fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discovering your limits, and when fear makes decisions, legacy suffers. The truth is, every meaningful path includes moments where quitting feels reasonable. Every builder questions the blueprint. Every athlete doubts their body. Every creator wonders if the work matters. These moments are not signs to stop. They are invitations to deepen commitment. The people who leave a legacy are not the ones who never wanted to quit. They are the ones who didn't obey the urge. Quitting stops growth because growth requires continuity. Skills compound. Wisdom accumulates. Strength develops gradually. When you quit, you interrupt that accumulation. You reset the clock. You lose the advantage of experience. And starting over is always harder than continuing, especially when belief has been damaged by previous quits. One of the most painful aspects of quitting is regret. Not immediate regret, but delayed regret. At first, quitting brings relief. The pressure lifts, the struggle ends. But over time, questions creep in. What if I had stayed? What if I had pushed a little longer? What would my life look like now? Those questions are heavy because they have no answers. Only possibilities that were never explored. Legacy grows through perseverance. It grows when you keep showing up even when results are visible. It grows when you honor commitments after motivation fades. It grows when you choose long-term meaning over short-term comfort. Quitting cuts that growth short. It freezes potential at its current stage. Many people quit because they confuse struggle with failure. They think difficulty means they're on the wrong path. But difficulty is often confirmation that the path matters. Easy paths rarely lead to meaningful destinations. Resistance, part of refinement. Pressure reveals purpose. If you quit every time it's hard, you'll never reach anything worth having. Quitting also affects others more than you realize. Whether you intend it or not, your actions set examples. Someone is watching how you handle adversity. Someone is learning what commitment looks like by observing you. When you quit, you teach them that giving up is acceptable when things get uncomfortable. When you persist, you show them what resilience looks like. Legacy is never isolated, it's relational. There are seasons when progress is slow, when effort feels unrewarded, when feedback is minimal. These seasons test commitment more than talent. Quitting during these times feels logical because there's no immediate payoff. But these are often the most formative seasons. What you learn about yourself here shapes how far you can go later. Quitting also erodes self-trust. Every unkept promise weakens confidence. You stop believing your own words. You hesitate to commit again because past experience tells you that you might not follow through. Over time, this creates a cycle of undercommitment and underachievement. Legacy requires trust, both in yourself and from others. The urge to quit often intensifies right before growth accelerates. This is not coincidence. As you approach a higher level, resistance increases. Doubt grows louder. Fatigue deepens. These moments are thresholds. Crossing them requires endurance. Quitting at this stage means stopping just short of transformation. Legacy doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. You don't need flawless execution. You need continued engagement. Mistakes don't end legacy. Pauses don't end legacy. Adjustments don't end legacy. Quitting does. There's a difference between quitting and pivoting. Pivoting is strategic, it's intentional, it builds on what you've learned. Quitting is emotional, it abandons lessons. Legacy is protected by wisdom, not impulse. The key is knowing whether you're making a thoughtful transition or escaping discomfort. When you quit, you often underestimate the cumulative value of your effort. You see only how far you still have to go, not how far you've come. You forget the progress you've already made. You discount the skills you've built. Quitting discards that investment. Persistence honors it. Legacy is not always visible while it's forming. Sometimes the impact of your work won't be felt for years. Sometimes you won't see the lives you influenced or the doors you opened. Quitting because you don't see immediate impact is like pulling up seeds because they haven't sprouted yet. Quitting also limits future opportunity. Many doors open only to those who stay long enough to be trusted. Reliability creates access. Consistency builds reputation. When you quit, you reset that trust. Legacy is built by those who become dependable over time. Every time you resist quitting, you strengthen endurance. You prove to yourself that you can survive discomfort. You build confidence that carries into other areas of life. Endurance is transferable. Once you develop it in one area, it supports you everywhere. There will be moments when quitting feels like self-care. But real self-care is not always comfortable. Sometimes it's choosing discipline. Sometimes it's choosing responsibility. Sometimes it's choosing to stay committed when emotions fluctuate. Long-term well-being is built through consistency, not escape. Quitting narrows your future. Persistence expands it. Every step forward, no matter how small, keeps possibilities alive. The moment you quit, certain futures disappear. You may never know what they were, but their absence will be felt. Legacy grows when you finish what you start. Completion carries weight. It communicates seriousness. It builds confidence. It earns respect. In a world full of starters, finishers stand out. Finishing requires staying when quitting feels justified. Even when outcomes change, staying committed to growth ensures legacy continues. You may not reach the destination you originally planned, but the journey will shape you in ways that matter. Quitting cuts that shaping short. Quitting often comes from focusing too much on results and not enough on process. When you fall in love with the process, learning, practicing refining results becomes secondary. This mindset makes quitting less tempting because value is found in daily effort, not just final outcomes. Legacy is not built by avoiding pain. It's built by learning to carry it, by moving forward with it, by refusing to let it define the end of your story. Pain passes, growth remains. When you feel like quitting, it's often a sign that you're tired, not incapable. Rest is not quitting. Slowing down is not quitting. Asking for help is not quitting. Quitting is giving up on the possibility of growth. Protect your energy without abandoning your purpose. There will be chapters of your life that test your commitment more than your ability. These chapters are not punishments. They are training grounds. What you endure here prepares you for responsibility later. Quitting in these chapters delays readiness. Legacy continues to grow as long as you stay engaged. Even imperfect effort keeps momentum alive. Even small steps maintain direction. The only action that guarantees stagnation is quitting. At the end of your life, legacy will not be measured by how easy your path was, but by how faithfully you walked it, by how often you chose persistence over comfort, by how many times you got back up. When you quit, a chapter ends prematurely. When you persist, the story continues. And stories that continue have the power to change lives. So when quitting whispers, pause, breathe. Remember why you started. Remember who you become. Remember that legacy doesn't demand speed. It demands endurance. As long as you don't quit, growth is still happening. As long as you don't quit, possibilities remain open. As long as you don't quit, your legacy is still alive and still growing. Every day, whether you are aware of it or not, you are writing a story about yourself. Not with words, but with action. Not with intentions, but with habits. Your daily habits are quietly composing your biography line by line, by line. Long before anyone asks who you are, what you stand for, or what you achieved, the answer is already written in how you live when no one is watching. Most people think their life story will be defined by a few big moments, major wins, dramatic failures, public achievements, or turning points that everyone notices. But the truth is far less glamorous and far more powerful. Your life is shaped in ordinary mornings, routine afternoons, and tired evenings. It's shaped by what you do consistently, not occasionally. The habits you repeat become the paragraphs of your biography, and over time, those paragraphs turn into chapters. Habits are powerful because they operate beneath awareness. You don't argue with them every day. You don't debate them. You just do them. That's why they are honest. They reveal your real priorities, not the ones you talk about. If someone wanted to know what truly matters to you, they wouldn't listen to your words. They would study your routines. Your habits never lie. Every habit is a decision you made once and then stop thinking about. Over time, those decisions compound. They either move you closer to the person you want to become or slowly pull you away from that vision. There is no neutral habit. Each one is either strengthening you or weakening you, building your future or eroding it. Many people live with a painful disconnect between who they say they want to be and who their habits are shaping them into. They want confidence, but they practice avoidance. They want growth, but they repeat comfort. They want discipline, but they rehearse excuses. This disconnect creates frustration, not because the dream is wrong, but because the habits don't support it. Your habits shape your identity. You don't wake up one day and decide who you are. You become who your habits say you are. If you consistently show up, you become reliable. If you consistently quit, you become someone who doubts themselves. If you consistently learn, you become capable. Identity is not declared. It's demonstrated daily. The most dangerous habits are not the obviously destructive ones. It's easy to recognize habits that are clearly harmful. What's harder to notice are habits that seem harmless but quietly limit growth. Scrolling instead of reflecting, complaining instead of adjusting, planning instead of executing. These habits don't ruin your life overnight, but they slowly rewrite your biography in a direction you never intended. Habits are especially powerful because they don't require motivation. Once established, they run on autopilot. And that's why waiting for motivation to change your life rarely works. Motivation comes and goes, but habits stay. If you want to change your future, you don't need a new feeling. You need new patterns. Every habit carries a message. When you wake up early to work on something meaningful, you are telling yourself, my future matters. When you follow through on commitments, you are telling yourself, I can be trusted. When you choose discipline over distraction, you are reinforcing self-respect. Over time, these messages shape your inner dialogue and your confidence. Your biography is also written in how you respond to difficulty. Do your habits include reflection or reaction, blame or responsibility, persistence or avoidance? Hard moments don't define you on their own, but how you habitually respond to them does. Repeated responses become character. Many people want to change their life story without changing their daily behavior. They want a different ending without rewriting the middle. But the ending is always a reflection of what happens in the middle. You can't outdream your habits. You can't outwish your routines. Your daily actions will always have the final word. Habits also determine your relationship with time. People often say they don't have time, but habits reveal how time was actually spent. Time is not found, it's allocated. Your habits decide whether time is invested or wasted. Over years, that difference becomes enormous. Small habits may feel insignificant, but they are the building blocks of legacy. One conversation practiced daily shapes communication. One choice to learn daily shapes intelligence. One act of kindness repeated shapes influence. Legacy is not created in a day, it is created daily. Your habits also affect how others experience you. The way you listen, the way you speak, the way you show up. These are all habits. People don't remember your intentions, they remember your patterns. Trust is built through consistent behavior, not occasional promises. Many people sabotage their growth by focusing only on outcomes. They obsess over results while ignoring the habits that produce them. But results are delayed feedback. Habits are immediate action. If you want different results, you don't start by chasing outcomes, you start by adjusting habits. Habits are especially important when no one is watching. Public performance can be influenced by pressure or praise, but private habits reveal true commitment. What you do in silence eventually shows up in public. What you practice privately becomes visible over time. Changing habits requires honesty. You must be willing to admit which habits are helping you and which are hurting you. Not judging yourself, but observing yourself. Awareness is the first step to rewriting your biography. Habits don't change all at once. They change through repetition and patience. Trying to overhaul everything at the same time often leads to overwhelm. Sustainable change comes from focusing on one habit at a time and practicing it until it becomes part of who you are. Your habits shape your mindset. If you habitually seek solutions, you become resilient. If you habitually focus on problems, you become stuck. Thought patterns are habits too, and they are some of the most influential ones. What you repeatedly think becomes how you see the world. Daily habits also influence your emotional state. Consistent routines create stability. Chaotic habits create stress. When your habits are aligned with your values, life feels more coherent. When they're misaligned, life feels exhausting, even if nothing major is wrong. Habits are not about restriction. They are about freedom. Good habits reduce decision fatigue. They eliminate constant inner conflict. They create structure that supports growth. Discipline in habits creates freedom in life. Your biography is not just about what you achieve, but about who you become. Habits shape patience, humility, courage, and integrity. These qualities don't develop in moments of inspiration. They develop in moments of repetition. Many people underestimate how much their future self depends on their present habits. The person you will be in 5 years is being trained today. The skills you will rely on later are being practiced now. The confidence you will need is being built or undermined daily. Habits also determine how you handle success. Without strong habits, success can overwhelm you. With strong habits, success becomes manageable. Habits create stability that allows growth without collapse. Your daily habits either align your life with your values or expose the gap between what you say and what you do. That gap creates discomfort, but it also creates opportunity. Closing that gap is how integrity is built. Habits don't require perfection. Missing a day doesn't ruin your story. Giving up does. Consistency is about returning, not never failing. Each time you return to a positive habit, you reinforce commitment. The most meaningful biographies are not written by people who were always motivated, but by people who were consistently disciplined. They didn't rely on feelings. They relied on habits. Your habits also shape your confidence in uncertainty. When life is unpredictable, habits provide grounding. They give you something solid to return to. This stability allows you to navigate change without losing direction. Every habit has a long-term consequence. Some consequences are obvious, others subtle. Over time, subtle consequences often matter more. Small habits repeated for years shape health, relationships, mindset, and opportunity. If you want to know where your life is headed, don't look at your goals. Look at your habits. Goals point to intention. Habits reveal direction. Direction determines destination. Your biography is being written whether you are intentional or not. The pen is always moving. The question is whether you are consciously choosing what gets written or letting habit write the story for you by default. Changing habits is an act of self-respect. It's saying that your future matters enough to require effort today. It's choosing long-term meaning over short-term ease. Your daily habits are quiet, but they are powerful. They shape mornings, define days, and determine decades. They decide whether your story will be one of growth or regret, consistency or chaos. In the end, your life story will not be summarized by what you plan to do, but by what you practice daily. Not by what you hope for, but by what you repeated. Your habits are writing your biography one day at a time. Legacy is not something that suddenly appears at the end of your life. It is something that is quietly forming every single day, especially in moments when no one is watching, no one is applauding, and no one is posting about you. Most people think legacy is built on stages, trophies, titles, and public victories, but the truth is far less glamorous and far more demanding. Legacy is shaped in private. It is molded in silence. It is forged in the ordinary, repetitive, unseen moments that test who you really are when there's no external reward attached. When the cameras are off and the crowd is gone, what you choose to do in those moments is writing a story people will eventually read about your life. When nobody is watching, excuses feel easier. Discipline feels heavier. Integrity is tested the most when there's no immediate consequence for doing the wrong thing and no immediate praise for doing the right thing. This is where character either grows or erodes. You can fake performance in public for a while, but you cannot fake who you are in private. Eventually, what you practice in isolation will show up in public. The habits you repeat when you think no one sees you become the behaviors people later recognize as your reputation. Legacy begins long before recognition ever arrives. Many people live for visibility. They want results that can be posted, celebrated, and validated by others. But legacy builders understand that visibility is a byproduct, not a goal. They are willing to put in work that will never be acknowledged, to show discipline that will never be documented, and to stay consistent even when progress feels invisible. They understand that the seeds that grow the tallest trees are buried the deepest. The deeper the discipline in private, the higher the impact in public. What looks like overnight success to the world is often the result of years of unseen obedience to a standard few people are willing to maintain. When nobody is watching, your true priorities reveal themselves. It is easy to say you value growth, excellence, faith, family, or purpose, but values are proven by behavior, not words. When you are tired, discouraged, or tempted to cut corner, what you choose to do in that moment shows what truly matters to you. Legacy is not built by what you say you believe in. It is built by what you consistently act on when it would be easier not to. Every private decision is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. The danger of neglecting the unseen moments is that small compromises rarely feel dangerous in the moment. Skipping discipline today feels harmless. Delaying responsibility tomorrow feels justified, but legacy does not collapse all at once. It erodes slowly through repeated neglect. What you tolerate privately eventually defines you publicly. If you tolerate laziness when no one is watching, it will show up as inconsistency when people are watching. If you tolerate dishonesty in small things, it will surface as broken trust in big. Legacy is fragile in the beginning and unforgiving at the end. Becoming who you are meant to be requires solitude, not because isolation is glamorous, but because transformation is internal work. When nobody is watching, you are forced to confront your fear, your insecurity, your limitations, and your excuses without distraction. This is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Growth does not happen in noise. It happens in reflection. Legacy-minded individuals use quiet moments not to escape reality, but to refine themselves. They review their actions, evaluate their mindset, and realign their behavior with their purpose. This constant private self-correction is what keeps them growing long after others plateau. Consistency in private is the foundation of trust in public. People eventually trust you not because of your words, but because of your patterns. When your private discipline matches your public performance, credibility is built. This kind of credibility cannot be rushed or manufactured. It takes time, repetition, and sacrifice. Legacy is slow because it is real. Anything that grows fast without strong roots collapses under pressure. But what is built patiently, quietly, and deliberately can withstand storm. When nobody is watching, motivation fades and only commitment remains. Motivation depends on feelings. Commitment depends on decisions. Legacy is built by people who do not wait to feel inspired before acting. They show up because they decided to, not because it feels good. They understand that feelings are unreliable, but standards are not. By holding themselves to a standard, even in private, they train themselves to perform under pressure when it counts most. The work done in obscurity prepares you for responsibility and visibility. Legacy is also about alignment. When no one is watching, you either live aligned with your values or you don't. Misalignment may go unnoticed for a while, but it always costs you internally. Living out of alignment creates inner conflict, stress, and dissatisfaction, even if external success exists. True legacy builders prioritize inner peace over external applause. They would rather be consistent in private than celebrated in public. This alignment creates a strength that cannot be shaken by criticism or praise because their identity is not dependent on either. The moments when nobody is watching are also where resilience is developed. Life will challenge you, disappoint you, and test you. Public strength is built on private endurance. When you learn to push through discomfort alone, you develop mental toughness that carries you through visible adversity. You don't panic when things get hard because you have already practiced perseverance in silence. Legacy requires this resilience because impact attracts resistance. The higher you rise, the more pressure you face. Only those who have mastered themselves in private can handle influence in public. Another truth about legacy is that it is inherited before it is admired. The people closest to you experience your private self long before the world sees your public one. Your family, friends, and inner circle know whether your words match your actions. If your private behavior contradicts your public image, your legacy is already fractured, no matter how successful you appear. But when your private life reflects integrity, respect, and consistency, those closest to you become living witnesses of your legacy. Their lives are shaped by who you are when no one else is around. Legacy is not perfection. It is progression. When nobody is watching, you will fail, fall short, and make mistakes. What matters is not flawless behavior, but honest correction. Do you take responsibility, learn, and adjust? Or do you repeat the same patterns and justify them? Growth requires humility, especially in private. The willingness to admit weaknesses and work on them without external pressure is a defining trait of lasting impact. Legacy grows when pride shrinks. Time is the ultimate witness. You can impress people briefly with performance, but only time reveals consistency. What you do daily in private accumulates into decades of identity. One disciplined day seems insignificant. One careless day seems harmless. But over years, these days stack into a life. Legacy is simply the visible result of thousands of invisible choices. You do not wake up one day with a legacy. You wake up one day inside the legacy you have been building all along. When nobody's watching, you are either preparing or procrastinating. There's no neutral. Silence is not inactivity, it is opportunity. You can use unseen moments to sharpen skills, deepen understanding, strengthen faith, and build habits, or you can waste them on distraction and comfort. Legacy builders respect time too much to waste it just because no one is observing. They understand that discipline does not need an audience to be valuable. It only needs purpose. The temptation to seek validation can be strong, especially in a world obsessed with visibility. But chasing applause weakens legacy. But chase focus from purpose to perception, from purpose to perception. When nobody is watching, you are free from performance. You can be real, honest, and intentional. This freedom allows true growth. The goal is not to look successful, but to become significant. Significance comes from contribution, and contribution is cultivated in private long before it is expressed in public. Legacy is ultimately about who you become, not just what you achieve. Achievements fade, trends change, and titles expire, but character endures. When nobody is watching, you are shaping your character through choices that seem small but are deeply formative. Patience, discipline, integrity, humility, and courage are practiced, not declared. They are strengthened in moments when it would be easier to ignore them. Over time, these qualities become instinctive, and that is when legacy becomes unavoidable. You may never see the full impact of the work you do in private, and that is part of the sacrifice. Legacy is often appreciated by generations you may never meet. The discipline you practice, the standards you uphold, and the values you live out quietly create ripple effects that extend beyond your life. When nobody is watching, remember this: you are still being watched by time, by truth, and by the person you are becoming. Every private decision is a brick in the structure of your life. Build carelessly, and cracks will form. Build intentionally, and strength will endure. Legacy is not loud in its creation. It does not announce itself. It whispers through daily obedience, quiet discipline, and unwavering integrity. So choose wisely in the unseen moments. Choose growth when comfort calls. Choose discipline when excuses feel reasonable. Choose alignment when compromise feels easy. Because long after the noise fades and the spotlight moves on, what will remain is who you became when nobody was watching. That is legacy. At the end of all striving, all effort, and all ambition, what remains is not the noise you made, but the substance you built. When the applause fades, when the crowd moves on, when your name is no longer trending or spoken in rooms you once dreamed of entering, the truth of your life will still stand. That truth will not be measured by how many people knew you, but by how deeply you lived in alignment with who you were meant to be. Legacy does not ask how loud your journey was. It asks how honest it was. It asks whether you became better in silence, whether you grew when growth was inconvenient, and whether you stayed true when compromise offered an easier road. Every day you are given moments that feel ordinary, forgettable, even insignificant. Yet these moments are the raw materials of a lifetime. They are the quiet choices that never make headlines but quietly determine direction. What you do when no one is watching shapes how you show up when everyone is. There is no separation between the private self and the public self, only a delay between cause and effect. The discipline you practice in isolation eventually reveals itself as confidence. The integrity you protect in obscurity eventually becomes trust. The patience you develop in silence eventually shows up as wisdom. It is easy to underestimate the power of consistency because it rarely feels dramatic. Showing up day after day does not come with fireworks. Doing the right thing repeatedly does not always feel rewarding in the moment. But time respects consistency more than talent, more than luck, and more than intention. Time magnifies whatever you repeat. If you repeat discipline, time turns it into mastery. If you repeat avoidance, time turns it into regret. Legacy is simply time revealing the patterns you refuse to break or the standards you refuse to lower. There will be moments when you feel unseen, unappreciated, and unnoticed. These moments are not punishments. They are tests. They ask one question over and over again. Who are you when there is no reward? If your commitment disappears without recognition, then your purpose was never strong enough to sustain you. But if you continue to grow, continue to work, and continue to hold yourself accountable, even when nobody is validating your effort, you are building something that cannot be taken from you. You are building internal strength, and that strength becomes your anchor when external circumstances shift. You must understand that legacy is not built by intensity alone, but by endurance. Anyone can be motivated for a season. Anyone can push hard when excitement is high. But only those who commit to long obedience in the same direction create lives that matter beyond their own comfort. Endurance is forged in repetition. It is shaped in the decision to keep going when stopping would be easier and justified. That decision, repeated enough times, becomes identity. And identity, once formed, guides behavior even under pressure. There will also be moments when no one understands why you are so disciplined, why you say no when others say yes, why you stay focused when distractions are everywhere. In those moments, Remember that not everyone is meant to understand your standards. Legacy often looks strange before it looks admirable. The same discipline people mock in the beginning is the discipline they envy in the end. Do not trade long-term respect for short-term approval. Approval fades quickly. Respect lasts longer than memory. Your private life is the training ground for your public influence. If you neglect it, your influence will collapse under its own weight. If you honor it, your influence will grow without corrupting you. Many people want impact without introspection, recognition without responsibility, and success without self-mastery. But life does not work that way. Influence exposes who you already are. It does not transform you. That is why the unseen work matters so much. It shapes the person who will eventually be trusted with more. You will make mistakes along the way. You will have days where you fall short of your own standards. These moments do not disqualify you unless you refuse to learn from them. Legacy is not about never failing. It is about refusing to stay the same. Growth requires humility, and humility is often learned in private failure, not public success. When you stumble, correct course quietly and continue forward. Progress does not need an announcement. It only needs commitment. As time moves forward, you will realize that the greatest reward of private discipline is not public success, but inner peace. There is a calm that comes from knowing you are living in alignment with your values. There is confidence that comes from self-respect. There is freedom that comes from not needing to perform for approval. This inner stability becomes your greatest asset. It allows you to navigate criticism without losing yourself and to receive praise without becoming addicted to it. Legacy also extends beyond you in ways you may never fully see. The standards you live by influence the people who observe you closely. Your consistency becomes permission for others to believe growth is possible. Your integrity becomes a model for those searching for direction. Even when you do not speak, your actions teach. Even when you are unaware, your life is leaving an imprint. This is why private character matters so deeply. It multiplies far beyond your awareness. At some point, you will look back and realize that the days you once thought were insignificant were actually the most important. The early mornings, the lonely nights, the decisions no one applauded, the discipline that felt thankless. These were not wasted moments. They were investments. They were shaping your capacity, strengthening your resolve, and preparing you for responsibilities you could not have handled earlier. Life reveals purpose gradually to those who prove they can be trusted with it. In the end, legacy is not about being remembered by everyone. It is about being remembered for the right reasons. It is about leaving people better than you found them, about standing for something when standing was costly, and about becoming someone you respect when you look in the mirror. Titles may fade, and accomplishments may blur with time, but character leaves a lasting echo. That echo lives in the lives you touched, the standards you upheld, and the truth you lived even when no one was watching. So continue building in silence. Continue choosing discipline over comfort, purpose over popularity, and integrity over convenience. Let time do what it always does. It reveals. And when it does, may it reveal a life that was not just successful, but significant. A life built not on moments of attention, but on years of intention. A life that proves that who you become in private is the greatest legacy you would ever leave. Every moment you have is a blank page, and every action you take is writing that page. Often we underestimate the weight of these small, unseen actions because the impact is not immediate. We forget that biographies are written line by line, habit by habit, choice by choice. Each decision matters, even the ones that feel trivial. Eating one more healthy meal, showing patience in a tense moment, reading one more page, practicing one more skill. These are the invisible strokes that paint the masterpiece of your life. What you repeatedly do creates pattern. Those patterns shape your character. Character shapes your choices under pressure. Choices under pressure shape your destiny. This chain is invisible until it is undeniable, and it's in this chain that your legacy is quietly being forged. Many people live reactive lives, waiting for circumstances to dictate their behavior. They believe that motivation should precede action, that inspiration should come before effort, and that validation should follow achievement. But this is the illusion of control. Life rarely provides perfect conditions. Legacy is not built waiting for ideal circumstances. It's built creating discipline where conditions are imperfect. When no one is watching, you are learning to act without applause, to persist without recognition, and to grow without validation. That is the essence of real leadership, the kind that outlives fame and fortune. Your habits, when unseen, are stronger than your actions when visible. Why? Because habits are the proof of internal alignment. They are self-chosen, repeated behaviors that demonstrate commitment to values rather than attention. The world can reward anyone temporarily, but time only honors those who honor themselves consistently. Your unseen habits are training for the inevitable challenges ahead. Moments of pressure, temptation, and distraction. What you practice when nobody sees you becomes instinctive when visibility arrives. This is the bridge between potential and realization, between talent and achievement, and between fleeting success and enduring legacy. Discipline cultivated in private is freedom in public. Think about it. The more you train your mind and body in obscurity, the less you are controlled by emotion, circumstance, or the opinions of others. You create leverage over yourself. You develop the ability to act decisively, to respond instead of react, and to maintain your integrity when shortcuts seem tempting. Legacy is built on this internal strength. External validation is fleeting. Internal authority is permanent. The work you do when unseen is creating the structure for all future influence. One of the most overlooked truths is that nobody can build your legacy for you. Mentors can guide. Coaches can advise. Opportunities can appear. But the work, the preparation, the persistence, the sacrifice cannot be outsourced. It is yours alone, and the critical work always happens when nobody is watching. This is why so many people fail to leave a lasting mark. They wait for conditions or recognition rather than taking ownership of the unseen labor. Those who understand the importance of private discipline realize that this work is not optional. It is the foundation of impact. When nobody is watching, excuses sound logical. You tell yourself you deserve rest, that the effort isn't paying off, or that it won't matter in the long run. But every excuse is a small withdrawal from your future. Every choice to avoid responsibility is a deposit in mediocrity. Conversely, every time you push past excuses, choose action, and honor your commitments, you are compounding the wealth of your character. Legacy is a balance sheet of these invisible deposits and withdrawals. Over time, the deposits dominate and your life yields influence that cannot be purchased or replicated. People often underestimate how much the unseen work shapes public perception. When the crowd finally witnesses your effort, it may appear effortless or natural. They may credit talent or luck. Few recognize the countless hours of unseen sacrifice, the daily discipline, and the unglamorous preparation that created the performance. This is why humility is essential in legacy building. Recognition will often lag behind effort. Pride can sabotage unseen work by making it about appearance rather than growth. The focus must always remain on the process, because the process will eventually reveal the results. Persistence in private is also a teacher of resilience. Life will inevitably test you in ways that are unfair, unpredictable, and exhausting. Your ability to endure those tests is directly proportional to the consistency you maintain when no one was observing. When hardship strikes, you will not panic because you have already practiced facing challenges in low-stakes environments. You will have learned how to recover from failure, adapt to adversity, and maintain direction without external support. Legacy thrives in those who have cultivated inner resilience. Another critical element of legacy is integrity. True integrity is invisible. It is the decision to do right when doing wrong would be easier or more convenient. When nobody's watching, integrity is measured not by the applause you receive, but by the alignment between your actions and your values. Every time you act with honesty, fairness, and courage, without expectation of reward, you are reinforcing a pattern that will define you in every public moment. Integrity is the foundation upon which trust is built. Trust, once earned, amplifies every influence you have and secures your lasting impact. Legacy also requires patience. Most people quit too early, expecting rapid results or visible validation. They cannot see that small actions, repeated consistently over time, create momentum and compound into enormous outcomes. When nobody is watching, it is easy to feel discouraged or invisible. But legacy is patient. It does not rush. It grows slowly, nurtured by persistent effort, and solidified by repeated commitment to doing the right thing over the easy thing. Patience in the unseen is a form of mastery, and mastery is what leaves an imprint on the world. Your private conduct also shapes how you handle influence. People are given opportunities to impact others long before they understand how to carry that responsibility. Without private discipline, influence can corrupt, inflate, or mislead. But with consistent unseen effort, you are prepared to wield influence wisely. Your habits, values, and integrity act as a stabilizing force, ensuring that when you are called to lead, your actions are deliberate and your impact positive. Legacy is not just about achievements, it is about responsible stewardship of opportunity. Even in the smallest unseen moments, choices matter. How you treat people who cannot help you, how you manage resources. These choices may feel insignificant at the time, but they form the unseen architecture of your life. The daily acts of preparation, kindness, discipline, and reflection are what allow greatness to emerge when the world finally watches. Your biography is written in the ordinary, not the extraordinary, and legacy emerges from the accumulation of these ordinary acts. The unseen work also cultivates self-respect. When you honor your commitments, show up consistently, and pursue growth privately, you develop a sense of confidence that cannot be shaken by criticism or failure. This internal validation is stronger than any external applause. Legacy is impossible without it because external recognition is fleeting. The foundation of enduring influence is built on the respect you have for yourself and the discipline you maintain in unseen moments. Moreover, the unseen work teaches humility. Few will witness the effort it takes to become excellent. You will often be alone in the preparation, correction, and repetition. Humility allows you to accept that mastery is a process. That achievement is not immediate, and that growth often occurs in silence. Those who seek recognition for every effort undermine the very process that produces legacy. Real influence and impact are quiet at their foundation, but loud in their outcomes. Another dimension of legacy is a ripple effect. The habits, decisions, and standards you practice and pry beyond your own life. They influence your family, colleagues, community, even strangers. Actions performed without expectation of recognition often have the most profound impact because they are consistent, sincere, and rooted in integrity. Legacy is amplified by these ripples, and the unseen work becomes the seed of transformation for others. The unseen moments also cultivate patience with time. Life does not operate on instant gratification, and the meaningful results of your labor often take years to materialize. Developing comfort with delayed reward is crucial to sustaining effort. When nobody is watching, your willingness to keep acting, despite the lack of immediate results, trains you for endurance and fortitude. These qualities are indispensable for leaving a lasting mark. Discipline in private is freedom in public. By consistently making the right choices when there's no external pressure, you remove the internal resistance that often sabotages action under scrutiny. You become capable of maintaining composure, decision-making clarity, and ethical behavior when stakes are high. This private training creates consistency that becomes visible in moments that matter, and those moments define public legacy. The greatest leaders, innovators, and influencers all have one thing in common. They mastered themselves when nobody was watching. They developed habits of diligence, accountability, and reflection that were invisible to the world. That mastery allowed them to perform under pressure, make wise decisions, and stay in impact long after initial recognition faded. Legacy is the long-term product of private mastery exercised consistently over time. Ultimately, what you do when nobody is watching shapes everything. It determines the standards you uphold, the character you embody, the impact you have, and the story you leave behind. Recognition is temporary. Fame is fleeting. Achievement is visible for a moment, but the life you build in private is permanent. Every unseen choice, every private act of discipline, every moment of integrity is a brushstroke painting the canvas of your life. The masterpiece emerges slowly, quietly, and deliberately. When you finally step into visibility, the world will witness the results. But your legacy will have been determined long before by the life you led in unseen moments. Your biography is written by these choices. Your character is strengthened by them, and your influence is amplified because of them. Do not underestimate the unseen, because it is in the unseen where your life is made. The work done in silence creates a foundation that cannot be shaken, a legacy that cannot be stolen, and a life that cannot be erased. So as you move forward, remember that who you are when nobody is watching matters more than what anyone sees. Continue to build quietly, choose wisely, act consistently, and uphold your standards. Each unseen moment is an investment in the life you want to leave behind. Treat it with reverence, because it is in those private choices that your biography is being written, your character is being formed, and your legacy is being secured. The culmination of your life's work reflect not the applause you receive, but the discipline, courage, and integrity you maintained when no one was watching. This is the essence of lasting impact, enduring influence, and true legacy